You're now watching the Mike Missanelli podcast on the BetRivers Network.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Mike Missanelli podcast. We are podcasting this on a Wednesday, July 31st, 2024. And the question of the day for everybody is this: are the Phillies in trouble? All right, we're going to discuss this on many levels. Their team now, I guess, is complete. They have made some subtractions and additions. We'll go over those in a couple of seconds. But right now, your fighting Phils are reeling. Let me give you some dastardly statistics. Now, as we record this podcast, they are playing the Yankees in Game 3, a day game. They've already lost this series, and they're down 4-0 against the Yankees, courtesy of a DJ LeMahieu grand slam. Hopefully they can come back. That was off of Christian Sanchez. So let's give you give you the bad first so we can flush it out. I know that people love in this town to panic a little bit, but I'm of the mindset that it's still a good team and they're still going to be okay. All right. So I mean, at least you know where I stand. But let's go over some numbers here. Harper, first of all, is 1 for his last 25. He was 0 for 5 last night. I haven't seen his at-bats today. The Phillies have lost 5 consecutive series. That is something that hasn't happened much all year. They've now lost 5 consecutive series, losing the first 2 to the Yankees. No matter what happens today, they've lost 8 of their last 12 games. And here's a grim stat, because the Phillies are based on their star hitters. If their star hitters are carrying them, they're going to be fine. Their pitching is good. Star hitters have to carry them. The stars have to show up. They get paid to show up. So let's look at the stars over the last few at-bats. Harper, Turner, and JT are 16 for their last 113. Now, that's not going to get it done. Listen, teams go through malaises. Good teams go through malaises. I think this is a malaise. I don't think this is a permanent thing. They're only 3-7 since the All-Star break, and again, they've lost 8 of their last 12, and it could be 9 of their last 13 today. Let's look now at their complete team and what they are right now, because they subtracted and they added. And what Dombrowski likes to do, he subtracts the players that aren't contributing, and he tries to get guys that will contribute. So he takes some chances. Who he subtracted were 2 relief pitchers, Dominguez and Soto. Both guys figured big in this bullpen at the start of the year. Both high-velocity, high-leverage type of pitchers who just didn't get the job done, and he cut bait with them. And he sent Soto to Baltimore, and he sent Dominguez to Baltimore. The Orioles are glad to have him. And in their stead, the Phillies grabbed Estevez from the Angels, their closer, which is, I think, an improvement. They also earlier had gotten Austin Hayes from the Orioles to play left field every day. I think that was a necessary trade. I think he's going to help more than hurt, depending on where they were with their OPS, and their outfield was horrendous. They had to make an upgrade there. As it turns out, Hayes is now going to be the full-time left fielder, with the platoon coming in center field with Johan Rojas and Brandon March. Hayes was an all-star last year. He's a good hitter. Baltimore has a lot of prospects. They were going to move up. He became a 4th outfielder. He became expendable. Hits right-handed pitching very well. 274 average with his 623 OPS, and hit a big home run for them a couple of games ago. I have no problem with that acquisition at all. Now, for Estevez, he's a rental. He's 31 years old. He's having the best season of his career. He's 1-2, 2.38, and 20 saves. Now, he won't be the Phillies closer. I don't think Rob Thompson is going to give him the ball and say, you're a closer. But he's another guy who can pitch in that cylinder of Jeff Hoffman and Alvarado, and then they add him in the mix. And I think Thompson will do the same thing that he's always done. He'll match up pitchers with hitters in late game situations. They're not going to, as much as we would like to see them with a full-time closer, I think Thompson has been soured by his lax experience with a full-time closer, the guy who now pitches for the Orioles, who shall go nameless, because he at the end of that year he was a disaster. So Estevez, it would shock me if he is the full-time closer. Just think of a 3-headed monster for the Phillies now. They're going to close out games. Now, Estevez has been pretty good. 34 innings, he has 32 strikeouts, only 5 walks. It does not walk, and he's got good high-end stuff. Hasn't surrendered a run in 18 consecutive appearances since May 28th. He's only allowed 5 base runners during that stretch. And, of course, he pitched an inning last night to add to his scoreless streak. The left-hander they got, who knows? The left-hander is Tanner Banks from the White Sox, 32 years old, 4.31 ERA in 41 appearances this year, 2 for 6 in save opportunities, 55 Ks and 15 walks. He's a lefty specialist. They will call on him to get a lefty out, but it's not the old days where you call in a left-hander to get one left-handed hitter out. There's the 3-hitter rule anymore. And so left-handed hitting batters are only hitting 184. I wish that he had those same stats if he has to face a right-hander. He has struck out 28 of the 83 left-handed batters he's faced. And his 3-year career in Chicago, it is okay. 3.89 ERA. He had a couple starts in there. So there you go. They're your new Phillies are in the fold here. Now, let's look at the other teams that are competing against the Phillies and what they did in the trade deadline. The Dodgers got Jack Flaherty, a key starting pitcher for them. They added Michael Kopech, a guy who's really never been able to put it together but has tremendous stuff. And they added Kevin Kiermaier, who announced this year is going to be his last year, he's going to retire anyway. He basically can catch a fly ball, Kevin Kiermaier. Can't hit anymore. So that's just a luxury pickup for the Dodgers. The Padres got Tanner Scott, a monster left-handed closer from the Miami Marlins, who's been that's a tremendous addition for the Padres, who have snuck up all of a sudden to be a wild card contender here. Their bullpen now is really lights out. And this is what teams do anymore. They get their starters and they get through 6 and then they turn it over to the pen. And these guys are really good for the Padres. And it's a different mindset for the Padres. Normally, they've gone the other way, try to out-hit you. Now they're going to try to out-pitch you from the 6th inning on. They're a dangerous team. The Mets got Jesse Winkler, spare outfielder, Phil Maton, who, of course, we are familiar with his brother. Whatever happened to his brother? It's like, I remember his brother had a good spring training, Nick Maton.
Yeah, and then they shot him into outer space, never to be seen from again.
I don't know what happened to him, whether he's in minor leagues or not. And they got Ryan Stanek, who's a pretty good relief pitcher. So the Mets are bidding. Let's look at the wild card. I always look to take inventory of this right now. The Phillies, as much as they are struggling, are still the number 1 seed. They have 65 wins to the Dodgers 63. You can trade off those teams. Both teams will probably get a bye. And then you look at the wild card teams. And here's how it sets up. If you get the number 1 seed, obviously, you're going to play the winner of the 4-5 seed. Right now, it stands like this. The Padres are the 3rd seed. The Braves are the 4th seed. The Mets are the 5th seed. And the D-backs, the D-bags, I call them, from last year, are the 6th seed. So if the Phillies hang in first place, they will play the winner of the Braves and the Mets. I don't know. Does that scare you? I don't know if that scares me, to be honest with you. The Mets or Braves at this point. The Dodgers would then play the winner of the Padres and D-backs. They'll keep it out west there. But if it flips around, now you're talking about the Phillies having to beat the Padres, who have this great relief core now, or the Diamondbacks, who seemed to have the Phillies number last year in the way they decided to play the Phillies. So this is a long way away, of course, from being solidified. But we'll just have to suffer along as we get through this tough streak with the Phillies right now. I don't believe that the good players on this team will just disappear. You're talking about accomplished players who are going through a lull of a Major League Baseball season. I believe they will be fine once we get into August and then certainly September. And I still expect the Phillies to be the number 1 seed, or if they're not, certainly the number 2 seed, which is a better position to be in, even though lately it has me. You sit out a couple games and somehow it makes you rusty, but I'd rather have the gap than not. Okay. That is our baseball for today. But I know a lot of people have a lot of angst out there about your fighting Phils at this point. Darren has a little bit of an issue. Producer Darren has a little bit of an issue because Yankee fans, obviously, and this happens with Met fans also. When people from New York come down this way, it's because they have money. And Philadelphia people are highly resistant to not making money. So there's a lot of season ticket holders in a situation like this where they are overpaid for their tickets that are going to do it. Now, there's been some complaints about this from, I guess, the Philly fans that don't do it, that so many Yankee fans have come down here to take over the stadium, don't make it the home field advantage that it normally is. I have no qualms about that. I really don't. I can't tell somebody in a regular season game. Now, playoffs are different. Regular season game, if some big wig from New York is going to offer you 5 times what that ticket is worth, I can't blame that person for selling the ticket. And I know a lot of people blame, how could you do that? It's against your team. Listen, man, tickets are a business, all right? And if you do it during the playoffs, then you got to look yourself in the mirror. But in a game in late July, if I got a $200 ticket and I can make $1,000, I'm taking the $1,000. I'm sorry. Does that make me a cur? Darren, you weigh in on this.
No, I don't think so at all. And I have a 16-game package with a couple of buddies, and we thought about selling last night, but we're like, because we figured out I'll pay for the playoffs. But we ended up not doing it. We wanted to be there. But it's not really a money issue with us, fortunately. So we didn't really need it. But what I find ironic, Mike, is that most of the people who complain, I can't believe the team, this or that. It's the fans who decide to sell their tickets. So if you're going to throw shade at someone or get mad at people, your gripe is with your own fan base. That said, I don't begrudge them by taking the money. Because, it's a regular season game in July.
It's a barroom argument here.
Yeah.
That should you have loyalty more to your team or your wallet? And I got, in this day and age where, we're suffering some tremendous inflation and we need every dollar that we can get to buy goods that have raised up in price, I can't begrudge anybody for selling that ticket, because then they get the best of both worlds. They can actually watch it on television. No, they don't get the best of both worlds. It's good to be in a stadium when you're playing the Yankees. There's a lot of excitement. There's the Aaron Judge factor. There's the Soto factor. I get it. But to me, if it's not a playoff game, I would think you're foolish for not selling. I really do. And I'm sorry to come out that way because it makes me sound like I'm not that big of a fan. But if I can make a profit on something like that, I got to make the profit and then think about it later. And I'm sorry. Listen, if your team can't win because a bunch of renegades are coming from New York to root for the Yankees, it's more on your team than anything. Who cares? Are you expected to win an away game at Yankee Stadium? You're damn right. So if it resembles more of an away game, you can't beat them. What are you going to do? You're going to blame your fans for selling out to Yankee fans who have come down? They make that much of a difference and hamper your team that much to the point where you can't win?
Yeah, I'll say one other thing too, Mike. Like, I've been to a game just about every series so far this year. The crowd last night, it was tight. Like the Phillies end, it was a lot of tight sphincters in that house last night.
Well, of course it was tight sphincters.
Even with the lead.
I tied it at 9th. They had a chance to win here. They had a chance to win. They got the gift of a wild pitch to tie the game. They went to 12th inning. Yeah, there are tight sphincters. But again, you're playing a good team now. And when you play good teams are going to whack you around a little bit. And the Phillies have a chance to whack them around a little bit down the road. What matters now is that the Phillies just continue to tread water. They've hit a little bit of a lull. The pitching staff that was consistent is now leaking a little bit. Sanchez is leaking. Now you have Ranger Suarez on the IR. Wheeler got racked the other night, and that's not going to happen very often. And now they've reset their pen. I think the general manager's really smart about this kind of thing. I think they're a better team now after the trade deadline than they were before. So we'll hold off on that. All right, there you go. That's your Phillies talk for today. Let's move on to your Philadelphia Eagles, which is Training camp is going on. I had to be honest with you. Training camp for football is the least interesting thing that I follow on sports. There is nothing that's exciting about training camp. Like people, well, Hurts is looking pretty good in practice. Well, he should look good in practice. it's freaking practice. What should happen in workout practice days that I should take to heart to think that the Eagles are going to be a contender? There's absolutely nothing. You can read all these propaganda reports. This linebacker looked good on this 7-on-7. He stepped in front of a guy and got an interception. Who cares? I really don't care until you tee it up. And this goes for the preseason games, which I don't even care. When you start and ring the bell for the regular season, I will figure out how good your team is. And right now, training camp bores me. So I don't know what more to say about this. Is it boring for you? Darren, you're more of a football guy. You live and die with football. We get these reports every day on so-and-so did this in practice on a 7-on-7. What does that mean to you?
Nothing. It means nothing. I don't care what a guy does in shorts. Oh, they put the pads on. Yeah, the quarterback's got a red jersey on. You're not allowed to blow air on him. You're not allowed to breathe on him. So, no, those numbers, and look, there's a couple beat writers that we know and we like a lot, but I love when these guys post stats from training camp day where you're in 7-on-7 for half the day. You're in shorts for most of the day. It's just ridiculous. There's a defender's not going to press you that hard. Yeah, young guys are trying to make it. Yes, there's going to be a couple plays a day where defense is going to go hard. But other than that, it's ridiculous. I get it. It's really so hard to judge guys in training camp.
I would love to give you some insights on how good the Eagles are going to be this year.
Yeah.
I don't have any. I'm sorry. It all depends on the quarterback. It all depends on whether Jalen Hurts is going to be a better player than he was last year. He certainly has enough weapons. And it's all going to depend on how Fangio steers this defense and what Kellen Moore can do with Hurts and what different things he can do with Hurts and whether Sirianni can stay out of the way of this whole thing and let it play out. As you know, I'm not a big fan of the head coach. I hope something different happens this year. He didn't show me anything last year when they lost 6 or 7 games. A coach has to influence and stop that kind of a skid. And instead, I thought he panicked a little bit. So, listen, my mind is wide open. I'm not down on the Eagles. I'm not down on Jalen Hurts. I hope that they can win 12 games. I look at the schedule. They look like an 11-win team to me. They're not a bad team. Can they be a contender? We won't know until the season starts, all right? Now, if we have a little tidbit that happens at camp, we'll surely highlight it on the Mike Missanelli podcast. All right, let's move on from the Eagles. Let's go into the Olympics, which I've been watching a lot of. I'm a big fan of the Olympics. I'm more of a fan of track and field and swimming than I am anything else. For instance, I must be the odd one that I'm not excited by gymnastics whatsoever. I'm just not. And the Americans won a team gold medal the other day, and they've got Simone Biles, the greatest gymnast of all time. If there is swimming on and there's gymnastics, I'm watching swimming. I'm not watching gymnastics. Gymnastics, in a way, as spectacular as they are, bores me. Now, am I wrong?
I don't like any of the Summer Olympics, Mike. I really don't.
You don't like any of the Summer Olympics?
No, I enjoy the Winter Olympics.
There's basketball, there's swimming, there's track and field.
I mean,
what are you, an alien?
I don't enjoy them. I really don't. Winter ones, I like a lot more.
Ski jumping in the Winter
I
Olympics?
like watching skiing, hockey, curling. I like those events.
You're odd.
Why am I
the Summer
odd,
Olympics
Mike?
really are the only Olympics.
Basketball in the Olympics sucks. It's terrible basketball.
The Americans are the majority team in the Summer Olympics.
Okay.
What are you rooting for Finland to do
not
something
for
in the Winter
anybody.
Olympics?
I'm not rooting for anybody. Even the Americans are playing terrible basketball.
But the Americans are like fish out of water in the Winter Olympics. You like the winter instead of the summer.
I enjoy watching those events more. There's nothing for basketball. If I want to watch good basketball, I'm not watching Olympic basketball.
You are so misguided sometimes with your opinions of basketball. Let's talk about basketball first of all.
Okay.
The big controversy was that Jayson Tatum did not get PT in the game where they beat Jokic and the boys. Now, I don't understand how that can happen. I get the fact that you've got 12 all-star players, and it's hard to give everybody a parcel of time where they can How in the world do you forget that Jayson Tatum, coming off a championship where he was the MVP of the damn NBA championship series, doesn't get any playing time?
Well,
I don't know how you can justify that.
We talked about him 6 weeks ago when we were trying to figure out who the last couple guys would be added to the roster. And I think I said Tatum would be one of the guys, one of the last two. So he's not like he was like a first choice. Like he was definitely on the team.
He's
kind
a
of the
star
add-on later
player.
I know.
Listen, Halliburton, you can justify sitting. You can't justify the MVP of the NBA Finals not getting playing time.
That's a good point. But
he forgot about him.
Late
and I don't know
add-on.
how you can do that. Now, I know Kevin Durant was on fire, and maybe Tatum would have got some of his minutes, but and he played him too long. I mean, you can't not play Jayson Tatum. It's an insomnia, as we say in Italian. But I don't even like Jayson Tatum, to be honest with you. I don't like any Celtic. But if I'm Steve Kerr, I haven't played Tatum in this game. Like what? Like it's absurd. And I guarantee you he'll play from this point on. Now let's move on. The Americans will win the gold. As much as we like to say, well, there are too many stars on the team, they don't know their roles. They're too talented to lose with this team. All right, so I have no problem that they're going to win the gold. There was something interesting that I saw that I did not know was a part of Olympic basketball, and it's the 3-on-3 Olympic basketball. What did they do? Did they go to Ice Cube to invent this? He has the big three, right? Where did 3-on-3 become an Olympic sport? I missed it, apparently.
There's a lot of things.
They lost, by the way, to Serbia, the 3-on-3 team. Rick Barry's kid is on it, who's a nucleophysical engineer of some sort who plays basketball on the side. They imported Jimmer Fredette, the old point guard from BYU, to be on this team. What is this all about, this 3-on-3?
There's a lot of things I don't get with the Olympics. They're trying to bring back art as a category in Summer Olympics.
Well, listen, the basketball part wasn't good enough.
Yeah, I don't get it either.
3-on-3 had to be. I'm confused by that. If anybody has any wisdom on that, I'd love to hear from you. All you do is email me, mike@mikemiss.com. Now let's get to the Embiid issue, because a lot of people are clamoring from Embiid to be put on the bench, and that Anthony Davis should be playing ahead of him, and he hasn't looked great. This is not probably his best forum, this international play. I don't even know why he's on this team, to be honest with you. If I was Joel Embiid, I would want to represent my country. I know Cameroon's not good, but come on, man. You grew up in Cameroon. Throw them a bone. You play for the Americans. Like, they really need you at this point. They don't have enough good players. But the old thing has come back for Joel Embiid. And I've got a pain in my side already. He has now been considered out of shape in these Olympic Games. He had an illness that knocked him out for a couple of days. I'm going, am I in Groundhog Day? It's the same old thing going over and over again that we have to put up. He's ill. This guy gets more flu-like illnesses than anybody I've ever seen. And he's out there talking about how if he didn't have all these injuries, he would be the best player ever in basketball history. And I'm going, dude, do you realize your connection to these injuries? That your connection to these injuries is that you haven't always been in tip-top shape. I have screamed for you to lose 30 pounds for 3 straight years. He doesn't do it. And I'm worried again as we go into the season, thinking if he's finally got his partner with Paul George, are we going to have to put up with the same Embiidisms? That's what's worrying me. All right.
How could he be out of shape, Mike? The NBA season ended for him a month and a half ago.
When you're out of shape, you don't work hard to rehab the injury. You come in, the injury still bothers you. So he had surgery. All right, I get it. But it's the same old thing. All right. Anyway, they're going to win the gold. He'll get a gold medal. He'll feel proud that he's a U.S. citizen. Knock yourself out. All right. A couple weird things. Darren, in the Olympics, in the Olympic Village, they have designed the beds to be no sex beds.
Yeah, it's
You
a
have read
far
about
cry
that.
from supplying them with like 100,000 condoms, which I think was the last time they met.
Yeah, they did that. However, they made it difficult for them to have sex in the bed because their beds aren't. They're like cardboard. Uh, uh, they're made out of polyurethane or something, and you really apparently can't get very good leverage. So they're discouraging sexual activity for a number of reasons. However, a Brazilian swimmer was expelled from the Olympic Games a couple of days ago because she left the village with her boyfriend, also a Brazilian swimmer, to go on a little soiree into Paris. so, I assume they had a little date, a little hotel champagne, and but she was then, when she returned to the village, she was told to immediately leave the village, to the point where she couldn't even pick up her clothes. They totally expelled her, like some corporate entity, like, we'll escort you out the door and don't take anything from your desk. As it turns out, she finished 7th in one of the races. So it was real easy for the French authorities to do that. The boyfriend survived. The boyfriend did not get expelled.
Why wouldn't he get expelled? He's just at fault. That sounds like a little.
Because he's a better
yeah.
swimmer. You get
that's
that?
Not
you
right,
see,
man.
You see how politics work?
Yeah, that's not right.
All right. One other thing that I wanted to touch on here. The women's gymnastic team from USA won the gold medal. Guess who was second?
Canada.
No. Team Italia
yeah.
was second. Now, I'm going to
gymnastics powerhouse, Italy. I love it.
Yeah. I'm going to recreate a conversation of two old Italians smoking a cigar and sipping espresso in an alley when they heard the news of the Italians finishing second. Il secondo posto non va bene. Finishing second isn't very good. And the other guy goes, Di cosa stai parlando, idiota? We haven't done that in a long time. Non vinciamo mai una medaglia nella ginnastica artistica. So you got one stubborn Italian who's proud of the team, and the other's a curmudgeon. It's not a gold. It's a no gold.
It's a no gold.
All right. What else we got today? Anything else? Oh, here we go. This is under the category of Mike Unleashed. I say this and knowing I'm going to be hated for it. I've seen enough of Jayson Kelsey. I'm sorry. I've seen enough. He's everywhere. Everywhere I turn. I'm watching the Olympics the other day. He's got a beret on.
So, he arm wrestled one of the rugby players.
There's a story about Jayson Kelsey every day. He goes back to training camp. He's doing this. So, as it turns out, in fact, I saw him in that golf tournament with the Charles plays in Lake Tahoe. Wall Street Journal is reporting that Jayson and Travis Kelsey are now asking for upwards of $100 million for the rights to their podcast, New Heights. I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know what to say. I can just tell you folks here, the Mike Missanelli podcast, sponsored by BetRivers. I am in no position to ask for $100 million. so I salute, as the guys in the alley in Italy would say, to Jayson Kelsey and Travis Kelsey asking for $100 million to the rights to their podcast. Is it worth it? I haven't listened to them.
We'll take 90.
I have not listened to the Kelsey podcast. I'm sure you have.
It's good. It's good. They're good together. And they get some pretty good high-end guests because of Travis.
Okay. 100 mil?
No. I don't think any podcast is worth $100 million.
Not worth 100 mil.
I mean, that's $90 million a year is what, that's like Howard Stern money.
Mm-hmm. Well, listen, hey, good luck to him. I appreciate the fact that they are taking advantage of the Kelsey name, and Jayson has found another career. So God bless him. All right, one other thing I wanted to tell the folks. If I've already posted this, so look for it on Twitter. I mentioned a couple podcasts ago about a new venture I'm starting, a new podcast venture, which has nothing to do with sports. It is a true crime podcast about a rape and a murder of a 9-year-old girl that had happened in a church in my hometown when I was growing up. I was 7 years old. The girl who was murdered was 9 years old. It has been a cold case for more than 62 years. I have decided to put on my journalistic hat and do some investigation of the whole case, why this was not solved, who were the suspects involved, and we have started a podcast called The Coldest Murder. If you go to YouTube, you can find our first episode of The Coldest Murder, where we set up the entire situation, the murder, when it happened, and who were the suspects. We will do another one today where we'll get more into who the suspects were and who could have committed this heinous crime. As we lead into progress, the podcast progressed, we will then get into DNA type of situations that can be used today to finally figure out who committed this murder. It's been something that has been with me for a lot of my years. It has bugged me for a really long time that they never found the killer. I was close to it. The police chief at the time in Bristol Borough is my relative. He alerted our family that it had happened at the time it had happened to make sure the kids got in the house to be safe, thinking there was a murderer in the neighborhood. And I've been spooked by it ever since. And I decided that this is the time to really do something about it. And at the end of this podcast, if we actually glean enough information to find out who this actual murder was, I think a lot of people will feel really good about it, not the least of which is the families that were involved and touched by this whole thing. So that's it. It's called The Coldest Murder. Look it up on YouTube, and you can get it as a straight podcast as well. And look for, I released the first link to our first episode. We'll be recording another one today, which will be available in a couple of days. But for Darren, I'm Mike Missanelli. Thanks for listening to the Mike Missanelli podcast today. And I'm going to just head back to the television to see the Phillies can pull this one. Take care, everybody. Have a great day.